She hadn't spoken a single word to anyone in 3 years. Not to strangers. Not to friends. Not even to her own sister. Just silence. Complete, total silence. Then both engines exploded at 37,000 feet over the freezing Atlantic, and a quiet woman in seat 41F stood up and said 5 words that made fighter pilots 200 miles away freeze. This is Blackbird. I have control. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. Nobody noticed her board the plane. She was the kind of woman you looked at and immediately forgot. Plain black jeans. Gray sweater. White sneakers worn at the edges. Hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. No makeup. No jewelry except a thin silver bracelet hidden under her sleeve that she touched sometimes when she thought no one was watching. Seat 41F. Window seat. Economy class. British Airways Flight 206, London Heathrow to New York JFK. Boeing 787 Dreamliner. 278 passengers. 6 crew members. Total, 284 souls. Zara Okonkwo was passenger number 143. She settled into her seat, buckled her seatbelt, and turned her face to the window. Outside, ground crew moved around the aircraft like ants. Baggage trucks. Fuel lines. The organized chaos of preparing a metal tube to fly across an ocean. The man in seat 41E arrived, middle-aged, business suit, already sweating despite the air conditioning. He shoved his carry-on into the overhead bin with a grunt, then dropped into his seat. Packed flight, he said to Zara, trying to make conversation. Always is on this route. You heading to New York for business or pleasure? Zara turned her head slightly toward him, gave the smallest polite smile, then looked back out the window. No words. The man waited a moment, then tried again. First time flying to New York. Zara shook her head, just barely. A tiny movement. Then returned to staring at nothing. The man got the message. He pulled out his phone and stopped trying. Good. A flight attendant walked down the aisle, checking seatbelts and overhead bins. When she reached row 41, she smiled at Zara. Can I get you anything once we're airborne? Water? Juice? Coffee? Zara shook her head. Still no words. The flight attendant's smile faltered slightly. She was used to passengers at least saying, no, thank you, but she moved on. In the row directly ahead, a young mother was settling in with twin girls, maybe 5 years old. They had matching pink backpacks and kept giggling and peeking over the seat at Zara. One of them waved. Zara lifted her hand slightly and waved back. But still, no words. Not even to children. The little girl whispered loudly to her sister, I think that lady is sad. The mother glanced back apologetically at Zara, then whispered to her daughters, leave the nice lady alone, okay? Some people just like to be quiet. The girl was right, though. Zara was sad. Had been for 3 years, 2 months, and 16 days. But nobody on this plane knew that. Nobody knew anything about her. To them, she was just another quiet passenger. Maybe shy. Maybe tired from work. Maybe one of those introverts who didn't like talking to strangers on airplanes. They had no idea who she really was. They had no idea what she used to be. And Zara wanted to keep it that way. The engine started, a low rumble that built to a roar. The aircraft pushed back from the gate. The captain's voice came over the intercom, smooth and professional. Good afternoon, folks. This is Captain David Hart. We've been cleared for departure. Flight time to New York will be approximately 7 hours and 15 minutes. Weather looks good most of the way, though we may hit some light turbulence over the Atlantic. Sit back, relax, and we'll have you in New York before you know it. The aircraft taxied toward the runway. Zara watched London disappear behind them. Buildings. Roads. People living their normal lives. She used to have a normal life. A long time ago. Before everything went wrong. The aircraft turned onto the runway. The engines roared louder. Then the acceleration, that feeling of being pushed back into your seat as the plane gathered speed. Faster. Faster. The nose lifted. The ground dropped away. They were airborne. Zara watched England shrink beneath them. Green fields. Grey cities. Then just clouds. Then nothing but sky. The man in 41E had his laptop out already, typing furiously. Something about quarterly reports and market projections. The twin girls in the row ahead were playing with dolls, making them talk to each other in high-pitched voices. A teenager across the aisle had earbuds in, head bobbing to music nobody else could hear. Normal people. Normal lives. Zara used to be normal too. Well, not normal exactly. But she used to have a life. A purpose. An identity. Now she had nothing. Just silence. She'd been silent for 3 years, 2 months, and 16 days. Not completely silent, she spoke when absolutely necessary. To grocery store clerks. To her landlord. To doctors. But even then, just a few words. The bare minimum. Because speaking meant being a person. And Zara didn't feel like a person anymore. She felt like a ghost. Her sister, Amara, was the only one who still tried to reach her. Phone calls every week. Text messages every day. Begging Zara to talk. To get help. To please stop disappearing. Last month, Amara had shown up at Zara's apartment in South London unannounced. She'd taken one look at Zara, unwashed hair, empty fridge, blinds drawn in the middle of the day, and started crying. "You're dying," Amara had said. "Not physically, but you're dying. And I can't watch it anymore." Zara had said nothing. "I found a specialist," Amara continued. "In New York. Dr. Sarah Vance. She works with soldiers. Combat veterans. People with PTSD. People who can't come home even when their bodies do." Zara had shaken her head. "No. Please," Amara begged. "Just one appointment. Just try. For me. I can't lose you, Zara. You're all I have left." So Zara had agreed. Not because she believed it would help. But because Amara was crying, and Zara couldn't stand to see her sister cry. So here she was. On a plane to New York. Flying across an ocean to see a doctor who probably couldn't fix what was broken inside her. Because what was broken inside Zara couldn't be fixed. She tried. Therapy. Medication. Time. Nothing worked. Because the problem wasn't in her head. The problem was in her soul. 3 years, 2 months, and 16 days ago, Zara had killed 6 people. Not on purpose. Not maliciously. But they were still dead. And she had pulled the trigger. The flight attendant started the drink service. The cart rolled down the aisle, stopping at each row. "Anything to drink?" "Coffee, please." "I'll have a Coke." "Just water for me." When they reached row 41, the flight attendant smiled at Zara again. "Can I get you something to drink, ma'am?" Zara shook her head. Still no words. The flight attendant hesitated, genuinely concerned now. "Are you sure? It's a long flight. You should stay hydrated." Zara looked at her, really looked at her. The flight attendant was young. Maybe 25. Blonde hair pulled into a neat bun. Name tag that said Emma. Emma looked like she genuinely cared. Zara almost said something. Almost said, "Water, please." But the words stuck in her throat. So she just shook her head again. Emma looked worried but moved on. The man in 41E glanced over. You really don't talk much, do you? Zara didn't respond. He shrugged. That's okay. My wife says I talk enough for 3 people anyway. He laughed at his own joke. Zara didn't. She turned back to the window. Outside, the ocean stretched endlessly. From up here, it looked peaceful. Beautiful, even. Deep blue water catching the afternoon sunlight. But Zara knew the truth. The ocean was cold. Unforgiving. Deadly. Water temperature this time of year, maybe 4 degrees Celsius. A person would last 15 minutes in water that cold. 20 if they were very lucky. Then hypothermia would shut down your organs one by one until your heart stopped. Zara knew things like that. She knew how long you could survive in freezing water. She knew the glide ratio of a Boeing 787. 20:1, for every 1,000 feet of altitude, the plane could glide approximately 20,000 feet forward. She knew the maximum structural speed for emergency descent. 340 knots indicated airspeed, though you could push it higher if you were desperate. She knew the ditching procedure for a commercial aircraft. Land parallel to the swells, not into them. Tail touches first. Don't flare like a runway landing or you'll break the back of the fuselage. She knew all of this because, once upon a time, she'd been a pilot. Not just any pilot. One of the best. Commander Zara Blackbird Okonkwo. Royal Air Force. 15 years of service. 97 combat missions. Afghanistan. Iraq. Syria. Libya. Places where people shot at you and you shot back, and the only thing between living and dying was skill and luck and the voice of your wingman saying, "I've got your back, Blackbird." Blackbird. That had been her call sign. Named after the State Route 71 Blackbird, the fastest, highest-flying reconnaissance aircraft ever built. Untouchable. Unstoppable. That's how Zara had flown. Fast. High. Precise. She'd loved flying more than anything else in her life. More than food or sleep or other people. When she was in a cockpit at 40,000 feet with nothing but sky around her, everything made sense. The chaos of the world fell away and there was only her, the aircraft, and the mission. She'd been good at it. Really good. By age 34, she was a squadron commander. By 36, the RAF was considering her for group captain, a senior officer position, the kind of rank that came with a desk and responsibilities and a future as a leader. Young female pilots looked at her and saw proof that they could do anything. The media called her a hero. The government gave her medals. Her squadron worshipped her. And then came the mission that destroyed everything. Operation Sandstorm. Zara closed her eyes, trying to push the memory away. But it was always there, playing on a loop behind her eyelids like a film that never stopped. A joint UK-US Special Operations team. Extracting a high-value intelligence asset from a compound deep in hostile territory. Zara providing air cover, flying in coordination with 2 American F-16s. Everything had gone wrong. Enemy forces surrounded the compound. The extraction team was pinned down. Taking casualties. Calling desperately for air support. Zara and the F-16s engaged targets around the compound. Precision strikes. Danger close. Everything by the book. Then the call came from the ground, vehicle approaching from the northeast, moving fast toward the compound. Likely enemy reinforcements. Blackbird, can you engage? Zara had acquired the target on her sensors. A truck. Speeding across the desert toward the compound. No IFF transponder signal, no identification friend or foe beacon that would mark it as friendly. Everything about it screamed enemy. The ground controller confirmed, "Blackbird, you are cleared hot." Engage that vehicle before it reaches the compound. Zara had lined up the shot. Locked on. The targeting computer showed green. Blackbird engaging, she transmitted. One button press. One missile. The truck exploded in a fireball. Direct hit. Clean kill. Except it wasn't. 3 seconds later, her radio erupted in screaming. Check fire. Check fire. Blackbird, cease fire. That was our QRF. That was the quick reaction force. They were friendlies. Oh God, they're all dead. They're all dead. The enemy vehicle had been a coalition quick reaction force, a team of soldiers rushing to help the surrounded extraction team. Their IFF transponder had malfunctioned. Nobody knew they were friendly. The ground controller had misidentified them as enemy. And Zara had followed orders and killed them. 6 soldiers. 6 men who'd been coming to save lives. Dead in an instant. The investigation had cleared Zara completely. Equipment malfunction. Communications breakdown. She'd followed proper rules of engagement. Done everything right. But 6 soldiers were still dead. And Zara had pulled the trigger. She'd attended all 6 funerals. Met all 6 families. Looked mothers and fathers and wives and children in the eye and tried to say she was sorry. But the words meant nothing. Sorry didn't bring anyone back. She tried to keep flying after that. Tried to push through. But every time she climbed into a cockpit, she saw the explosion. Heard the screaming. Felt the weight of 6 lives crushed under the certainty that she didn't deserve to save anyone ever again. For months after Operation Sandstorm, during a routine training flight, she'd had a complete panic attack at 20,000 feet. Hyperventilating. Vision tunneling. Nearly blacked out. Her wingman had to talk her through landing. The RAF Medical Board diagnosed her with severe PTSD and survivor's guilt. They grounded her. Offered therapy. Medication. Desk jobs. Zara had refused everything. She'd resigned her commission. Walked away from the RAF. Walked away from flying. Walked away from the identity she'd built over 15 years. For 3 years, she'd lived in silence. She worked remotely as a data analyst, anonymous work, no human interaction required. She lived alone in a small apartment. She didn't socialize. Didn't date. Didn't maintain friendships. She spoke only when absolutely necessary. Because speaking meant engaging with the world. And engaging with the world meant remembering she used to be someone who saved lives. And remembering that meant remembering the 6 she'd killed. So she stayed silent. A ghost. Existing, but not living. The plane hit some turbulence, just a little bump. A few passengers gasped. The seatbelt sign dinged on. The captain's voice came over the intercom, calm and professional. Folks, we're experiencing some light chop. Nothing to worry about. Just going to keep those seatbelts fastened for a bit. Zara didn't react. She'd flown through turbulence 1,000 times worse than this. She knew the difference between uncomfortable and dangerous. This was nothing. The turbulence settled after a few minutes. The seatbelt sign turned off. People relaxed. Went back to their movies and books and conversations. Zara kept staring out the window. For more hours to New York. For more hours of silence. Then the appointment with Dr. Vance. Then back to London. Back to her apartment. Back to being a ghost. She was so tired. Tired of carrying the weight. Tired of seeing their faces every time she closed her eyes. Tired of the silence that had become her entire existence. But she didn't know how to be anything else anymore. The flight attendant, Emma, came by again, this time collecting trash. When she reached row 41, she paused and looked at Zara with genuine concern. Ma'am, are you sure I can't get you anything? You haven't had anything to drink since we took off. That's over 4 hours now. Zara looked up at her. Emma's eyes were kind. Worried. Zara wanted to say, I'm fine, thank you. Wanted to reassure this kind stranger that everything was okay. But the words wouldn't come. So she just shook her head. Emma bit her lip, clearly torn between respecting Zara's silence and her own concern. Finally, she said softly, if you need anything at all, just press the call button. Okay. Zara nodded. Emma moved on, glancing back once with a worried expression. The man in 41E was watching. You're very quiet, he observed. Zara didn't respond. He shrugged. That's okay. Some people are just like that. My sister's the same way. Barely says 2 words. Drives my mother crazy. He laughed. Zara didn't. She turned back to the window. And that's when everything changed. The sound came from the left side of the aircraft, a loud bang that echoed through the cabin like a gunshot. Then the plane lurched violently. Passengers screamed. Oxygen masks dropped from the ceiling, dangling like yellow plastic snakes. The aircraft shook, a deep, vibrating shudder that Zara felt in her bones. Her entire body went rigid. Her pilot brain, silent and dormant for 3 years, roared to life in an instant. Left engine. Catastrophic failure. Not a flameout, structural damage. Possible turbine disintegration. The shaking continued. People were grabbing for the oxygen masks, fumbling with them, crying, praying. The little girls in the row ahead were screaming. Mommy! Mommy! The mother was trying to stay calm, trying to get masks on her daughters while her own hands shook. It's okay, babies. It's okay. Just breathe. But her voice was tight with fear. The captain's voice came over the intercom. Professional. Controlled. But underneath, Zara could hear the stress. Ladies and gentlemen, we've experienced an engine failure on the left side. We're beginning a descent to a lower altitude as a precautionary measure. Please remain calm. Secure your oxygen masks and keep your seatbelts fastened. Flight attendants, please be seated. Engine failure. Serious, but manageable. A Boeing 787 could fly on one engine. They'd divert to the nearest airport, probably Keflavik in Iceland or Narsarsuaq in Greenland. They'd land. Everyone would be fine. Standard emergency procedure. Zara forced herself to breathe slowly through the oxygen mask she'd automatically grabbed. Not your problem. You're not a pilot anymore. Let them handle it. The man in 41E was hyperventilating into his mask. Oh God. Oh God. Are we going to crash? Zara wanted to tell him no. Wanted to explain that single-engine failures happened and were survivable. That pilots trained for this exact scenario. But she didn't speak. Just kept breathing. Kept staring straight ahead. The aircraft was descending. Zara could feel it in her stomach, that sinking sensation. Controlled descent. The pilots were handling it. Everything was going to be fine. 60 seconds passed. People were starting to calm down slightly. Still scared, but not panicking. Then. Another bang. This time from the right side of the aircraft. Louder than the first. The plane shuddered violently, worse than before. And then the sound changed. The background hum of the engines, something you don't even notice until it's gone, disappeared. Now there was only wind. The terrible, unnatural whistle of air rushing past a gliding aircraft with no power. Both engines were gone. Zara's blood turned to ice. No. No, that's not possible. Dual engine failure over the ocean is. The captain's voice came back. And this time, there was no hiding the fear. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now lost both engines. We are declaring an emergency. Flight attendants, prepare the cabin for a possible water landing. Passengers, please review your safety cards and follow all crew instructions carefully. Water landing. Ditching. In the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. The cabin exploded into chaos. People screaming. Crying. Praying. Children wailing in terror. Someone threw up. The man in 41E grabbed Zara's arm, his fingernails digging into her skin. We're going to die. Oh my God, we're all going to die. Zara pulled her arm free, her mind already calculating automatically. Current altitude, approximately 30,000 feet, based on descent rate and time since first engine failure. Glide ratio for Boeing 787, 20:1. Maximum glide distance, approximately 100 nautical miles. Nearest land, Iceland, approximately 250 nautical miles northwest. Greenland, roughly the same distance west. We can't reach land. We're going into the ocean. She looked out the window at the water below. Water temperature, approximately 4 degrees Celsius this time of year. Survival time in water that cold, 15 minutes maximum without proper immersion suits. Wave height, from what she could see, 12 to 15 feet. Maybe higher. Ditching a commercial aircraft in 15-foot swells. Zara had studied water landings. Had trained for them in simulators. The survival rate was terrible. In rough seas like this, maybe 30%. 284 people on this aircraft. 200 were about to die. A flight attendant rushed past, tears streaming down her face, trying to shout instructions over the screaming, life vests are under your seats. Put them on but do not inflate them until you're outside the aircraft. Do you understand? Do not inflate inside the plane. But people weren't listening. They were crying. Texting final messages to loved ones. Holding each other. The man in 41E was typing frantically on his phone, tears running down his face. Emma, I love you. Tell the kids I love them. Tell them I'm so sorry. Tell them. In the row ahead, the mother had both twin daughters pulled tight against her chest. Both girls were sobbing. The mother was whispering, God will protect us. You're safe with me. I promise. I promise. But her voice was shaking. She was lying to her children because she didn't want them to die knowing the truth. 4 rows back, an elderly couple was holding hands. The man's lips were moving in silent prayer. The woman just stared straight ahead, her face blank, resigned to death. Across the aisle, a teenage boy was crying, holding his phone, staring at a photo. His family, probably. People he'd never see again. 284 people. All about to die in the freezing Atlantic. And Zara was the only person on this aircraft who knew how to land a plane with no engines. Her hands started shaking. No. You can't. You're not a pilot anymore. You killed 6 people. You don't deserve to save anyone. What if you fail? What if you make the wrong decision and everyone dies just like before? The captain's voice came back, and now it was breaking with barely controlled panic. If there is anyone on board with aviation experience, any pilots, any military personnel, anyone who has flown aircraft, please identify yourself to the flight attendants immediately. We need help. The cabin went silent except for crying. Nobody responded. Flight attendants looked around desperately, hoping someone would stand up. Nobody did. Zara sat frozen, her heart pounding so hard she thought her ribs might crack. You can't. You can't do this. You're broken. You're. A flight attendant stumbled past, openly crying now, her professional composure completely shattered. Nobody. There's nobody. We're all going to die. Zara closed her eyes. She saw them. The 6 soldiers from Operation Sandstorm. She'd memorized their faces. Their names. Staff Sergeant Marcus Webb. 29 years old. 2 kids. Corporal David Chen. 23. Engaged to be married. Specialist Jennifer Okafor. 26. Studying to be a nurse before she enlisted. Private First Class Ahmed Hassan. 22. Sent money home to his mother every month. Sergeant Kyle Morrison. 31. His wife had just had twins. Corporal Thomas Reeves. 25. Volunteered at an animal shelter on weekends. 6 people. 6 lives. Gone because of her. You can't save these people. You're not qualified. You're not. Then a different voice in her head. Her first squadron commander. Wing Commander Patricia Collins. The woman who trained Zara when she was 22 and terrified of everything. Collins had pulled her aside after a particularly difficult training flight and said, "Blackbird, you know what separates good pilots from great pilots? Good pilots fly when the weather is perfect and all the systems work and everything goes according to plan. Great pilots fly when everything's broken and people are dying and you're the only one who can help. That's when you find out who you really are. That's when you earn the wings on your chest." Zara opened her eyes. She looked at the mother holding her daughters. The elderly couple holding hands. The teenage boy staring at a photo of his family. The man in 41E typing his final message to his wife. 284 people. All about to die. Unless she did something. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely unbuckle her seatbelt. What if you fail? What if you kill them all? Then another thought, quieter but stronger. What if you don't try and they die anyway? Zara stood up. Her legs felt like water. Her heart was hammering. Her breath was coming in short gasps. But she stood. The man in 41E grabbed her arm. "Ma'am, you need to sit down. We're supposed to stay seated." Zara pulled free, gently but firmly, and stepped into the aisle. A flight attendant saw her, rushed over. "Miss, please, you need to return to your seat immediately." Zara spoke for the first time since boarding the aircraft. Her voice was quiet. But it carried an authority that made the flight attendant stop mid-sentence. "I'm a pilot. Royal Air Force. 15 years of service. I need to speak to the captain right now." The flight attendant stared at her like she'd just spoken in a foreign language. "You're, what?" "I'm a pilot," Zara repeated, her voice stronger now. "I can help. Open the cockpit door." The flight attendant's eyes went wide. "Oh my God. Oh my God, yes. Yes, come with me." She grabbed Zara's hand and pulled her toward the front of the aircraft. People in the aisle seats were staring. "Who is she? Did she say she's a pilot? Is she going to save us?" Zara didn't answer. Just kept walking. Step by step toward the cockpit. Toward the thing she'd run from for 3 years. Her hands were shaking. Her vision was tunneling. But she kept walking. Because 284 people were about to die. And she was the only one who could stop it. The cockpit was controlled chaos. Captain David Hart, 52 years old, 23,000 flight hours, silver hair, steady hands, was hunched over the controls, desperately trying to restart the engines while warning alarms screamed. First Officer Sarah Kim, 31 years old, Vietnamese American, 5,000 hours, was on the radio, her voice cracking with stress. Shanwick Oceanic Control, British Airways 206 Heavy, we have dual-engine flameout, descending through flight level 270, require immediate assistance, emergency declared. A third person, Flight Engineer Tom Bradford, was frantically checking systems, looking for any explanation for why both engines had failed simultaneously. The flight attendant pushed open the cockpit door. Captain. This woman says she's a pilot. Captain Hart didn't even look up. Unless she can restart a pair of GX 1B turbofan engines mid-flight, she can't. I can't restart your engines, Zara said, stepping into the cockpit. Her voice cut through the chaos like a blade. They're gone. But I can help you ditch this aircraft in a way that gives everyone on board a chance to survive. And I can do it better than you because I've trained for emergency water landings in combat situations under enemy fire. Now give me the observer seat and let me help before 284 people die. Everyone in the cockpit froze. Captain Hart's head snapped up. He stared at Zara, this woman in civilian clothes, speaking with the calm authority of a combat officer. Who the hell are you? Zara took a breath. She hadn't said this name out loud in 3 years, 2 months, and 16 days. Hadn't identified herself as this person since the day she resigned her commission and walked away from everything. Commander Zara Okonkwo. Royal Air Force. Call sign Blackbird. 97 combat missions. Now move over and let me help you land this plane before we all die. The flight engineer's mouth dropped open. Wait. Blackbird? The Blackbird? Sarah, the first officer, turned around in her seat, her eyes wide. Oh my God. You're the RAF legend. I read about you. You flew combat missions in Syria and... I'm not a legend, Zara said, her voice tight. I'm just a pilot. And right now, that's what you need. She slid into the observer seat, a small jump seat behind the captain's position, and forced herself to look at the instruments. It all came flooding back. Altitude. Airspeed. Heading. Vertical speed. Attitude indicator. Artificial horizon. Her brain processed it automatically, like she'd never stopped flying. Status, she said sharply. How much altitude do we have? Captain Hart was still staring at her, trying to process what was happening. We're at 27,000 feet. Descending at approximately 1,800 feet per minute. At this rate, we hit the water in. He calculated quickly. 15 minutes. 15 minutes. Zara's mind raced. 15 minutes to prepare for an ocean ditching that will probably kill most of the people on this plane. Unless we do everything perfectly. Ocean conditions, she asked. Sarah checked the flight computer. Wave height estimated at 12 to 15 feet. Wind from the northwest at 25 knots. Water temperature 4 degrees Celsius. Zara nodded. Exactly what she'd calculated from looking out the window. Survivable, she said. Difficult, but survivable. Have you declared Mayday? Yes, Sarah said. Shanwick Oceanic Control has our position. They're coordinating rescue assets, but the closest ships are, she checked her screen. 90 minutes away. 90 minutes. They had to keep 284 people alive in freezing water for 90 minutes. One problem at a time. First, Zara said, we configure this aircraft for ditching. Captain, you're going to fly. I'm going to guide you through every step. First officer, you maintain communications with ATC and coordinate rescue. Flight engineer, I need you to prepare the cabin systems. She spoke with calm authority, the voice of someone who'd commanded squadrons in combat. Captain Hart stared at her for one more second, then made a decision. Okay, he said. Okay, Blackbird. We're in your hands. Tell us what to do. Zara took a breath. You can do this. You've trained for this. Just execute. First, reduce airspeed to ditching speed. For a 787, that's 140 knots. Start reducing now. Hart's hands moved to the controls, pulling back slightly on the throttles that no longer controlled anything, adjusting the aircraft's pitch to slow down. Configure flaps to 30 degrees, Zara continued. We need maximum lift at low speed. Flaps 30, Hart confirmed, moving the lever. Coming down. Landing gear stays up, Zara said firmly. This is critical. If we lower the gear, it will catch the water and flip the aircraft nose first. We ditch on the belly. Understood. Gear up. Zara turned to the flight engineer. Fuel dump. We need to be as light as possible. Start dumping fuel now. Tom Bradford hesitated. If we dump fuel and somehow restart the engines. We're not restarting the engines, Zara said. They're gone. Accept it and move on. Dump the fuel. Less weight means slower sink rate after impact. Tom nodded and started the fuel dump procedure. Sarah transmitted, Shanwick Control, British Airways 206, we are preparing for emergency ocean ditching. We have a Royal Air Force combat pilot on board assisting with procedures. A different voice cut in, sharp, military, immediate. British Airways 206, this is Typhoon Lead, call sign Raptor, 1, NATO exercise Trident 7. We're currently 180 miles southeast of your position, diverting now to provide assistance. Identify the RAF pilot on board. Zara's entire body went cold. Typhoon Lead. That's an RAF fighter squadron. That's my old unit. Sarah looked back at Zara. Ma'am. Zara stared at the radio. For 3 years, she'd been invisible. Hidden from everyone in her old life. Now her former squadron, the people she'd abandoned, was asking for her by name. Her hand trembled as she reached for the radio mic. Typhoon Lead, this is. She had to force the words out. This is Commander Zara Okonkwo, call sign Blackbird. I am on board British Airways Flight 206, assisting with emergency ditching procedures. The silence that followed felt like an eternity. Then. Blackbird? The voice was familiar. Wing Commander James Davies. Her old commanding officer. Blackbird, actual Blackbird. Ma'am, we thought, everyone thought you'd. He didn't finish the sentence. Because everyone thought she disappeared forever. And she had. Until 30 seconds ago. I left, sir, Zara sighed. Quietly into the radio. But I'm here now. And I have 284 people who need me to focus. Can you provide visual escort and coordinate rescue assets? Yes, ma'am. Davies' voice was thick with emotion. Blackbird, ma'am, it's good to hear your voice. Zara's throat tightened. Good to hear yours too, sir. Now let's save some lives. She released the mic and turned back to Captain Hart. Okay. Here's what's going to happen. For the next 12 minutes, Zara transformed the cockpit from chaos to controlled precision. She wasn't flying, Captain Hart kept his hands on the controls. But Zara became the tactical coordinator. The voice of calm. The guide through impossible circumstances. Captain, maintain 140 knots. Not faster, not slower. That's our optimal ditching speed. First officer, broadcast Mayday on emergency frequency 121.5 every 30 seconds. Include our exact position, heading, and number of souls on board. Rescue helicopters need precise coordinates. Flight engineer, secure all loose equipment in the cabin. Tell the flight attendants, passengers remove shoes, eyeglasses, anything sharp. Life vests on but not inflated until outside the aircraft. Exits over the wings, that's where the aircraft will float longest before sinking. Her voice was steady. Professional. Inside, she was terrified. What if I'm wrong? What if I make the wrong call and they all die? But she pushed the fear down. One decision at a time. Execute the plan. Descending through 20,000 feet now. The RAF Typhoons appeared, for sleek fighter jets, dropping down from high altitude, forming up around the gliding 787 like protective escorts. Davies transmitted, Blackbird, Raptor flight has visual. 4 ships. We're with you all the way down. Copy, Raptor lead. I need you to mark our ditching path. Deploy flares on the water surface to give Captain Hart a visual reference. Roger, Blackbird. Raptor 2, you're with me. Flare run in 30 seconds. 2 of the Typhoons dove ahead of the 787, dropped down to wave top level, and released flares that drifted down on small parachutes, creating a glowing path on the dark ocean surface. Perfect, Zara said. Captain, you see the flares? I see them, Hart said, his voice tight. That's your landing path. We're going to ditch parallel to the wave direction. Not into the waves, parallel. If we hit perpendicular to the swells, the waves will snap the fuselage in half. 15,000 feet. Zara switched to the cabin intercom. Cabin crew, this is the observer. Listen carefully. 60 seconds before impact, I will give the command to brace. At that moment, every passenger goes into brace position, head down, hands behind neck, feet flat on floor. No exceptions. Children on laps, not in seats. Do you understand? A shaky voice came back, understood. You're doing great, Zara said. Stay focused. We're going to get through this. She switched back to the cockpit crew. Captain Hart's hands were shaking on the controls. Sweat poured down his face. Blackbird, I've never done this. I've been flying for 30 years and I've never ditched an aircraft. Neither have I, Zara admitted. Not for real. Only in simulators. But I've done it 100 times in training. I know what works. What if we fail? Zara looked at him. Then we fail trying. But we're not going to fail. You're a good pilot, Captain. I can see it in how you're handling this aircraft. Trust yourself. Trust me. We're going to do this together. 10,000 feet. Sarah was still on the radio, all stations, British Airways 206 Heavy, ditching in approximately 8 minutes, position 51 degrees north, 28 degrees west, request all available rescue assets. A new voice broke in, British Airways 206, this is U.S. Coast Guard C-130 Rescue, 7, we're inbound from Keflavik, ETA your position 20 minutes. We're bringing surface rescue assets. 20 minutes. Too slow. But it was something. Copy, Rescue, 7, Sarah said. We'll try to keep everyone alive until you get here. 8,000 feet. Zara's mind was racing through the physics. Descent angle. Impact speed. Pitch angle at touchdown. Everything has to be perfect. Too fast and we disintegrate. Too slow and we stall and nosedive. Too nose up and we tail strike and break apart. Too nose down and we submarine and sink immediately. She'd practiced this in simulators. But simulators didn't have real people. Didn't have children screaming. Didn't have 284 lives depending on every decision. Don't think about that. Just execute. 6,000 feet. Captain, here's exactly what's going to happen, Zara said, keeping her voice calm. At 100 feet above the water, you're going to pull back gently, and I mean gently, on the yoke. Not a flare like you would on a runway. Just a slight nose-up attitude. We want the tail to touch first. Why the tail first? Hart asked. Because the tail can absorb energy. It's designed to hit hard. It'll crumple and slow us down. Then the fuselage settles onto the water. If we land nose first, we submarine. If we land flat, the impact breaks the aircraft in half. 4,000 feet. After we touch, cut all electrical power except emergency lighting. The aircraft is going to skid forward violently. It's going to feel like we're dying. But if you keep the wings level, if you don't let one wing dip into the water, we won't cartwheel. How do I keep the wings level when we're hitting 15-foot waves? You don't think. You react. Use the rudder. Use the ailerons. Feel the aircraft. You've been flying for 30 years, your hands know what to do. 2,000 feet. Zara could see individual waves now. Dark water. White foam. The ocean looked violent and hungry. This is it. This is really happening. Cabin crew, Zara announced over the intercom. 30 seconds to impact. All passengers brace now. Brace, brace, brace. In the cabin behind them, 284 people bent forward, heads between their knees, hands locked behind their necks. The twin girls were crying. Their mother held them tight and whispered prayers. The elderly couple gripped each other's hands. The man from 41E had his eyes squeezed shut, mouthing the words to a prayer he hadn't said since childhood. 1,000 feet. Flaps full, Zara said. Give us every bit of lift. Flaps full, Hart confirmed. 500 feet. Speed 140 knots. Perfect. Hold it right there. 300 feet. You're doing perfect, Captain. Perfect. 200 feet. The water was right there. Dark and cold and real. 100 feet. Now. Pull back. Gently. Hart pulled the yoke toward him. The nose came up. The tail dropped. 70 feet. Hold it. Hold it. 50 feet. 30 feet. This is it. Stay with me. 20 feet. 10 feet. Impact. The tail hit the water with a sound like the world ending. Slam. Metal screaming. Water exploding upward. The entire aircraft shuddering like it was being torn apart. Zara was thrown forward against her harness, the breath knocked out of her. The fuselage hit next, a second impact, somehow worse than the first. The 787 skipped once, completely airborne for a fraction of a second. Hit again. Skipped again. Then skidded forward, water roaring around them, metal groaning, alarms screaming. It felt like it would never end. But after what felt like forever but was actually only 5 seconds, the aircraft stopped moving. Floating. Intact. Silent except for the sound of water lapping against the hull. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Then Captain Hart let out a sob of relief. Sarah was crying. Tom Bradford was shaking. And from the cabin came a sound Zara would never forget. Applause. Cheering. Crying and laughing and praying all at once. The sound of 284 people realizing they were still alive. Zara unbuckled her harness with shaking hands. We're not done, she said, her voice hoarse. We're floating, but we're taking on water. We have maybe 10 minutes before we sink. We need to evacuate. Now. She stood, pushed past the flight crew, and opened the cockpit door. The cabin was chaos, people crying, hugging each other, some still in brace position, too shocked to move. Flight attendants were already opening emergency exits, deploying slides that automatically inflated into rafts. Everyone listen to me, Zara shouted, her voice cutting through the noise. We are evacuating now. Move to the nearest exit. Do not take anything with you. Leave your bags. Leave everything. Just move. Her command voice, the voice she'd used in combat, got people moving. They started flooding toward the exits. Help your neighbors. Zara continued. If someone next to you is frozen, grab them and move them. We don't leave anyone behind. She positioned herself at the overwing exit, helping people climb out onto the wing. The water was shockingly cold, she could see people gasping as they dropped into it. Keep moving. Get to the rafts. An elderly man reached the exit, trembling. I can't swim. You don't have to swim, Zara said, gripping his arm firmly. Jump to the raft. 3 feet. You can do it. He jumped. Made it. Hands pulled him into the raft. The mother with twin girls came next, one daughter on each hip. I can't carry them both. Yes you can, Zara said. You're stronger than you think. Go. The woman jumped. Made it. Both girls crying but alive. The man from 41E came through, still shaking. Thank you, he sobbed. Thank you for saving us. Zara couldn't respond. Just pushed him gently toward the exit. Move. People kept coming. One after another. Young. Old. Scared but alive. The aircraft was settling lower in the water. They were running out of time. Faster. Zara shouted. Move faster. Flight attendants were doing head counts, trying to make sure everyone was out. Ma'am. Emma, the young flight attendant, appeared at Zara's shoulder. That's everyone from the back sections. Just forward cabin left. Go, Zara said. Get yourself to a raft. Not without you, ma'am. They worked together, pushing the last passengers through. A teenage boy, shaking with hypothermia. A businessman, praying in Hebrew. An elderly woman, somehow perfectly calm. Finally, the cabin was empty. That's everyone, Emma said. We need to go. The plane's sinking. Zara did one final sweep, running down the aisle, checking every row. Empty. 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 Everyone was out. She ran back to the exit. The water was up to the level of the wing now. The aircraft was definitely sinking. Jump. Emma shouted from a raft. Zara jumped. The cold hit her like a physical blow. Freezing water that stole her breath and made her muscles seize. Hands grabbed her. Pulled her into a raft. She collapsed onto the rubberized floor, gasping. Around them, the scene was surreal. 20 rafts floating on the dark ocean. 284 people in life vests, clustered together for warmth. 4 RAF Typhoons circling overhead like protective angels. And the Boeing 787, slowly sinking beneath the waves. It went down tail first, the nose pointing skyward for a moment like it was reaching for the sky one last time. Then it slipped beneath the surface and was gone. Silence. Except for the wind and the waves and people crying softly. How long until rescue? Someone asked. Zara checked her waterproof watch. Coast Guard ETA is 18 more minutes. We can make it. We can. She stopped. In the raft next to them, a little girl was screaming. One of the twins. She's so cold. She's so cold, the mother was crying. She's shaking so much. Hypothermia. 4-degree water. They'd been in it for almost 5 minutes already. The little girl's lips were blue. Her shaking was violent. Late-stage hypothermia. Maybe 10 more minutes before organ failure. Give her to me, Zara said, reaching across to the other raft. The mother hesitated. I'm trained for cold water survival, Zara said. Give her to me. Now. The mother handed over her daughter. Zara pulled the girl close to her chest, wrapping her own body around the small frame. Skin-to-skin contact. Sharing body heat. What's your name? Zara asked. LL Lucy, the girl chattered. Lucy, I need you to stay awake. Can you do that? Stay awake and talk to me. I am sea cold. I know. But help is coming. You just have to hold on a little longer. Can you be brave? The little girl nodded against Zara's chest. Zara held her tighter. Around them, people were singing, someone had started a song, and others joined in. Keeping spirits up. Fighting the cold. The typhoons continued their circular pattern overhead. Davies transmitted, "Blackbird, Rescue 7 is on final approach. You did it, ma'am. You saved them all." Zara looked down at the shivering child in her arms. "Not all of them. Not yet. Lucy, stay with me. Just a few more minutes. I'm tired. I know. But you can't sleep. If you sleep, you won't wake up. Stay awake. Talk to me. Tell me about your family. And my daddy, he's in New York. You're going to see him soon. I promise. You promise? I promise." The sound of helicopter rotors. Then 3 massive U.S. Coast Guard helicopters appeared, dropping rescue swimmers and baskets. People started cheering. The rescue swimmers hit the water, grabbed people, lifted them into the baskets. One by one, the rafts emptied. Lucy was taken up first, wrapped in thermal blankets, rushed to the helicopter's medical crew. Her mother went next, crying with relief. Then the elderly couple. The businessman. The teenager. One by one, 284 people were pulled from the freezing water. All alive. All saved. Zara was the last person pulled up. As the rescue basket lifted her out of the ocean, she looked down at the empty rafts floating on the dark water. 284 souls. All alive. Because she'd spoken when she wanted to stay silent. Because she'd acted when she wanted to hide. Because for 15 minutes, she'd stopped being a ghost and remembered who she really was. Blackbird. The Coast Guard helicopter landed at Keflavik Air Base in Iceland 70 minutes later. Medical personnel were waiting, doctors, nurses, thermal blankets, hot beverages. Zara stumbled off the helicopter, her legs barely supporting her. Someone wrapped a blanket around her shoulders. Someone else tried to guide her to the medical tent. "Ma'am, you need to be checked for hypothermia." "I'm fine," Zara said. Her voice was hoarse. "Check the others first. Especially the children." "Ma'am, you were in the water for." "I said I'm fine." She pulled away and walked toward the crowd of survivors. 284 people, all wrapped in blankets, all alive. Families were hugging. Strangers were embracing. Someone was playing music from their phone, a hymn, something hopeful. The mother with the twin girls saw Zara and ran over. "You," she sobbed. "You saved us. You saved my babies." Lucy, the girl Zara had held, was wrapped in blankets but smiling now. "She promised I'd see Daddy." The mother hugged Zara so hard it hurt. "Thank you. Thank you. I don't know how to." "You don't have to," Zara said quietly. "I'm just glad you're safe." The elderly couple approached next. The man was crying. "We've been married 53 years. I thought we were going to die together today. But you gave us more time. Thank you." Then Captain Hart. The man who'd landed the plane under Zara's guidance. He looked exhausted. Shaken. But alive. "Blackbird," he said. "I don't know what to say. You saved my life. Saved all of us." "You landed the plane," Zara said. "I just gave advice." "No." Hart shook his head. "Without you, we'd all be dead. You're a hero." "I'm not a hero," Zara said, her voice tight. "I'm just a pilot who happened to be there." Before Hart could respond, a voice called out. "Blackbird." Zara turned. Wing Commander James Davies was walking toward her across the tarmac. He was in full flight suit. He must have landed his Typhoon at Keflavik right after the rescue. Behind him were 3 other pilots. Her old squadron. Zara froze. She hadn't seen these people in 3 years. Hadn't spoken to them since the day she resigned. Davies reached her and stopped a few feet away. He looked older. More gray in his hair. But his eyes were the same, sharp, kind, unwavering. "Ma'am," he said quietly. "Sir," Zara replied. They stared at each other for a long moment. Then Davies stepped forward and pulled her into a hug. Zara stood rigid, unsure how to respond. "The squadron has missed you," Davies said, his voice thick. "I've missed you. When you disappeared after Sandstorm, we all understood why. But we never stopped hoping you'd come back." Zara's throat tightened. "I couldn't, sir. I killed 6 people. I couldn't." "You saved 284 today," Davies interrupted. "Doesn't that count for something? It doesn't bring back the 6. No. But it proves that you're still who you always were. Blackbird. The pilot who saves lives when everyone else has given up." The other pilots approached, Lieutenant Morgan, Captain Patel, Flight Lieutenant Chen. Faces Zara remembered. "Ma'am," Morgan said, saluting. "It's good to see you." "You too," Zara managed. Davies looked at her seriously. "Ma'am, I spoke with the families. All 6 families of the soldiers from Operation Sandstorm." Zara went pale. "What? They've been trying to reach you for 3 years. They don't blame you, ma'am. They know what happened. They know the IFF failed, that you followed correct procedure, that it wasn't your fault. They asked me, if I ever found you, to tell you that you're forgiven." Zara felt something crack open inside her chest. "I don't know how to forgive myself," she whispered. "Then let us help you," Davies said gently. "Come home, Blackbird. Not to fly combat, not unless you want to. But to teach. To train the next generation. To show young pilots what you just proved today, that skill and courage in refusing to give up saves lives." Zara stared at him. "I'm scared," she admitted. "I'm so scared of failing again." "Then fail with us beside you," Davies said. "Not alone. Not in silence." He held out his hand. Zara looked at it. At this man who'd been her commanding officer, her mentor, her friend. At the squadron behind him, her family, once. At the survivors behind her, 284 people alive because she'd chosen to speak. Slowly, she reached out. And took his hand. Commander Zara Okonkwo stood at the front of a classroom at RAF Cranwell, the Royal Air Force College where new pilots learned to fly. She wore her uniform again, perfectly pressed, medals on her chest, the Blackbird patch on her shoulder. 40 young pilots sat in front of her, staring at the legend they'd only heard about in whispers. Zara took a breath. "My name is Commander Zara Okonkwo. Call sign Blackbird. For 3 years, I didn't fly. Didn't speak. Didn't believe I deserved to be called a pilot anymore. The room was silent. I made a decision in combat that killed 6 soldiers. Good people. Innocent people. People whose names I say every night before I sleep." She paused, letting that sink in. "Then I found myself on a plane with 284 strangers. And when both engines failed over the Atlantic Ocean, I had a choice, stay silent and let them die, or speak and risk failing again. Risk being responsible for more deaths. Risk proving that I really was broken beyond repair." She looked at each young face. "I chose to speak. And 284 people lived." A young woman raised her hand. "Ma'am, how do you fly when you're afraid of making a mistake?" Zara smiled, a real smile, the first genuine one in years. "You don't stop being afraid. You fly anyway. Because the people depending on you don't need you to be perfect. They need you to be skilled, present, and willing to act when it matters. That's what being a pilot means. Not being fearless. Not never making mistakes. Just being there when people need you most." After class, Zara walked to the flight line. A Typhoon FGR-4 waited for her. She'd been cleared for training flights, taking young pilots up, teaching them what 15 years of combat flying had taught her. She climbed into the cockpit. Her hands trembled slightly as she touched the controls. 3 years since she'd done this. 3 years of silence. 3 years of running. But when the tower cleared her for takeoff, her voice was steady. "Tower, this is Blackbird. Requesting clearance for takeoff. Blackbird, you are cleared for takeoff. Welcome back, ma'am." Zara advanced the throttles. The Typhoon's twin engines roared to life. And she lifted into the sky. The sky where she belonged. For 3 years, she'd been silent. For 3 years, she'd hidden from who she was. But today, she flew. Because silence doesn't save lives. Action does. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is speak when every part of you wants to stay quiet. Sometimes the bravest thing is standing up when you're terrified of falling. Sometimes the bravest thing is trying again, even when you've failed before. As the Typhoon climbed through the clouds, Zara whispered to herself. 6 lives I couldn't save. 284 I could. That doesn't erase the past. But it means the future isn't written yet. She rolled the aircraft into a smooth turn, feeling the G-forces, feeling alive. Blackbird was home. This story is about redemption earned through action, not given through time. It's about how silence can be both armor and prison. How guilt can freeze you. How the hardest thing in the world is trying again after you've failed catastrophically. But it's also about how 284 lives matter just as much as 6. How choosing to act despite your fear is what makes you a hero, not never being afraid in the first place. Zara didn't forget the 6 soldiers she killed. She never will. But she learned that carrying that weight doesn't mean you have to stop moving forward. Sometimes the people we couldn't save are honored most by saving the ones we can.